Hello and welcome to another edition of Liquid Health News. I'm your host, Jefferson Nunn. I'm joined by Carrie James. Um, we have just more amazing, incredible news that have come out in the last week. Just incredible, not necessarily in a good way. There's a court case actively proceeding now about children that have had brain damage due to toxic exposure to chlorpyrifos. I don't even know how to say that word, but it's led to autism, ADHD, loss of IQ, and more. And there is no safe level of this, pesticide that they've been using. And they're still today spraying this pesticide that is Dow Chemical is spraying this pesticide on all our foods. Just incredible that this is still ongoing. Carrie, do you have any thoughts about this so far?
Yeah, I'm shocked, but then I'm not surprised because we've been doing such a number on this planet, for a while. But I'm hoping that this actually, gets people to understand that we need some regulation. Um, I think that it speaks to what you and I have been saying, which is there's just not enough information out there about our environment and how it impacts us all, especially our children. Um, I came across something mold related with the Seattle Children's Hospital. Did you hear about the class action lawsuit they have going?
No, tell me more.
Yeah, so as you know, my experience with mold was in my HVAC, and it was basically because there was roof leaks from all the hail damage, and no one came inside to bother to look at those yellow ceiling stains to see if anything was dry on the inside. And what I found after that, I was so reactive to almost every building that I went into is that the schools and hospitals and restaurants and grocery stores, same thing. You'll go in, you'll see these yellow stains. And then if you notice, you look at their HVACs, you'll see
Mm,
what looks like dirt coming out of their HVACs. But I've since learned that, any inside dirt or dust should be white or light gray. Anytime you see anything darker than a super light gray, that means that there is mold and other bacteria on that dust. So I'm saying that because it looks like what happened with Seattle Children's Hospital is they had all these children with immune deficiency disorders, and they're compromised, and they were going in to get surgeries, and in the operating rooms the HVAC was filled
oh, good
with
God.
aspergillus, and so they've had children who died after the operations, and then
Oh,
others who were complicated. They had complicated situations, so they actually did tests and found aspergillus had gone into their bodies when they were open on the table, and then it created all kinds of issues. So then they went back to the records and found that employees, people who would walk down the hallway, could see stuff happening in the HVAC, and they kept complaining, and they'd actually sent in anonymous letters to the local environmental organizations, and no one ever took care of it.
uh, terrible. Just terrible that these children, and it's all because, people just don't think mold is a real thing. They think it just, and that's the thing. If you say there's viruses in the operating room, they would take it seriously. If you say there's bacteria all over the operating room, they would take
Right.
it seriously. But mold, No big deal, right? We make cheese from it, right?
Right. Or they like to say it's common indoor mold.
Right.
And I actually watched some of the news reporters, what they said about it when it came out. And they did that. They did the old, well, this is because these kids already had, immune compromised systems.
Oh
If
no.
you see it in your school or you see it in your home, it's no big deal. And I think that's what I'd love to, really communicate to our listeners is that we have to take our health into our own hands. We don't live in a country where people are very educated about these things. So you need to be your own advocate. You cannot take other people's kind of traditions as the only way to go, like the tradition to clean mold with bleach. That is the worst thing you can do. They have studies, they have toxicologists are the mold experts, and they've done studies, and they say that the poisons that are sent out from the mold spores, the invisible VOCs, the mycotoxins. Now, these are
Right.
what we really need to be concerned about. And when bleach or any chemical touches mold, they send them out like a fury because it's their way of defending themselves. And so
Right.
anytime you've been in a building and anyone has cleaned mold with bleach, basically they've created um, a really bad situation and it's invisible. And so I'm saying this because it happens over and over and over where after I became mold aware, again, like anybody else, you have to experience it for you to even really understand it because we're not taught anything. And now I am so adamant that we stop calling mold something like it's just common and making it sound like it's no big deal. When we know from toxicologists that mold is the most dangerous and toxic thing known to mankind.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we really have to take this a lot more seriously. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to take this a lot more seriously. And I've been trying to think of ways that, we can, one, get the message out there to doctors, to the frontline workers, so that they're more aware of what's going on, so that hopefully, I'm just hoping that over time, we can stop people from getting so sick by this. Because here's the thing: is one of these long-term damage things. The more they're in that toxic environment, the worse their health effects will be. And then there is no recovery. It's the latest thing that I really hit upon last couple of days. And I've said it before: there's remediation, but there is no recovery from mold. All right. You can remediate the mold out of your body, but there's going to be lasting effects from it. And I think in many of the books and in, many of the other shows, these doctors are saying, oh, just take this magic pill and it's going to make you all better. It's not going to make you all better. Nothing is going to make this go away. Like we met from this incredible story from this lady last week, Leslie. I'm just always in awe with her strength, her passion about, keeping on every day. And to try to tell her that she can recover from this mold would almost be an insult,
Yes.
considering the damage that it's been done to the body. And I think that's the key: is they don't think, one, that the mold can injure, and two, if it does injure, that it isn't long-term actual damage. Frequently, these doctors say, oh, you're just making it up, go see a shrink.
Yes. And also, I think it's again going back to some kind of traditional understanding, a very naive understanding, because I remember when I was in the midst of it, still trying to figure it out, I had an optometrist appointment. And to get these glasses, I remember this was a long time ago, so I love my frames, so I keep getting the same frame.
Nice.
But so I remember sitting in his room, and I was, doing the whole thing, and I was like, yeah, I have all these really strange, like I told him how it affected my vision. Now that is something that is factual. It affects your vision because you breathe it in, it gets in your head, it goes behind your eyes, it affects the capillaries and the pressure and the blood going to your brain. And he just said to me, no, that's not mold you're dealing with. He goes, mold is more of a chest thing. It's just the typical, all it is if you breathe in mold, then you'll cough and you'll have chest issues. And in fact, that's the polar opposite of what I had. I had everything first, but the chest issues. And then as I became more and more exposed and more inflamed, and I kept going into buildings that I shouldn't be in, then that came later on. And that's just because of how my body reacted and the type of mold. So I think that's important to point out, Jefferson, is that everyone likes to lump everything up in a group or a category. And that's what makes this so challenging, is that your body is different than my body. And you have predisposition to certain weaknesses. And so do I, based on our DNA, based on what we lived in before, what we were exposed to before. It's this huge thing. So, I'm not going to have the same reactions, based on what I breathed in and what types of mold and how much and where it was. Was it behind the wall or was it in the HVAC? So much. So it really comes down to education, because that's the other part, is that when you are dealing with it and you think you finally have found the answer, and then other people try to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. And that's where I've been trying to educate everyone I meet when I get the chance. And they are quite blown away. They're blown away by the fact that if it's so toxic, why have we never been taught this? If they make chemical warfare from the mycotoxins that are in our homes and our schools and our workplaces, why don't we ever talk about this? I mean, this is something that I feel like, gosh, we should all have some kind of class action lawsuit to the educators, of like, why weren't we taught any of this? So, I just find that I get frustrated, and I want to read something important. I was watching videos from the Toxic Mold Summit that was held recently.
I saw that, yes.
Yeah, and I was watching Dr. Dennis, who is an ENT out of Atlanta. Now, his products were a game changer. I mentioned them in the last episode.
Sure.
If I had not found his products, I don't know where I would be today. He has created a line. They're called Microbalance Health Products. If you go to his website, he has a whole protocol. You can buy his spray. You can use it in a spritzer, which I suggest you get your own kind of nozzle, whatever you like. I have a little one that I carry with me everywhere. I have one in my home. There's the candles, there's a laundry cleaner, like you can put it in your rinse and it will get the mycotoxins out of your clothing. There's also, you can get a large amount and you can use it in a fogger, which, again, if you're on a budget, you don't have to buy a fogger. I found out you can go to Home Depot and rent a fogger, or one of those places, and make sure Here's what I would do. I would spray the fogger down before you bring it in your place, because somebody else had that fogger, right? Anyway, so he also has things that you take internally to help your DNA, repair your DNA. Because Jefferson, this was the thing that tripped me out the most, is we're talking about something that has intelligence, that actually it will go after your own weaknesses and try to destroy your DNA. So you have to repair that. So like you're saying, there is no magic pill. There's this constant staying on top of it. So, when the weather changes and there's more mold outside and you go outside or you let it in your place, you now have to stay on top of that. it's just it's a never ending thing.
That's one of the reasons why I was saying I know COVID is a terrible thing, but I'm glad that the KN95 masks are just $1. Because I go outside and I wear that all the time now, and it doesn't look odd that I'm wearing it. It's almost like oh yeah, he's just afraid of COVID. No, I'm afraid of mold and everything else that's in the air. But yeah, COVID is a nice bonus, and I'm protected from that. But no, there's one thing I do want to share with our listeners. The FDA has certified the VCS test, visual contrast sensitivity test. Right now, there's another website out there that has it for like $10 a test or whatever. One of the things that we're going to have our web developers do at the foundation when we have a moment is to code that test on our website, because it's a very simple test. You just simply have to make sure your monitor or your iPhone device is calibrated. There's a very simple calibration step, and then you run the BCS test on your eyes, and then you see how you scored. When I was living in the mold environment, I failed that BCS test miserably. Like, I was on the bottom end of the scale. My cousin took the test. She's not in a mold environment, and she passed. All right. Because she was concerned about her environment. But in her case, it turned out to be a different problem. In my case, it was definitely mold behind the walls. So, but it's a very inexpensive test, and we're going to make it a free test over time. But for $10, you can run the test on your own, and you can see if mold is affecting your health. Or some toxin. It could not necessarily be mold, but it could be some toxin as well, because that's what they use to determine if agriculture workers have been harmed by pesticide. They use the VCS test. Likewise, there's several different food products that if you're exposed to those food products after it spoils, you will fail the VCS test. So there's many reasons why you could fail the VCS test, but mold exposure is definitely one of those reasons. So yeah, and then from there, I saw some of the things about the toxic mold summit, and one of the things that always gets me is some of these doctors, they're coming in at $695 a visit, which is, to me, exorbitant. And by the way, they tell you have to be on a 12-month protocol, probably 2 visits a month minimum, and it just goes on, and it doesn't end. And one of the things that we will be doing with our foundation over time, and this is why we could use anybody's help that's listening to this, is definitely share with us your success stories. Share with us how you've gone through and recovered from mold. We're going to be trying to outline programs, free to follow programs on the site, and asking people's input. Think like Wikipedia, how they open source, articles. We'll have a section on our site where we'll try to open source how to recover from mold. What things are working. For example, I do know for reducing inflammation, turmeric is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And there have been scientific studies done on turmeric, and they've shown, it does reduce inflammation. So you want to get your body to stop screaming. That's one way to reduce it. And there could be 1,000 things like this, but unless we come together, put the information, put the knowledge out there on the website, then you wouldn't necessarily need a $695 doctor telling you to take turmeric. I mean, come on.
I agreed. And Jefferson, that's a whole other thing. Don't get me started on, doctors who know what a devastating experience it is on so many levels. I mean, we're talking financial, emotional, because you got to get rid of your stuff. It's crazy. And some of them charge these outrageous amounts. They I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to name names, but I did look at someone's website who was in Dallas, and I was interested in knowing what they charge. And they had this thing written where it told you that in order to stay their client, you need to get your limbic training system and this and this and this. And I thought, well, how uncaring and very, very cold. Now, I'm just going to be very honest. I would run from someone like that because instead of them saying, if you're able to, we suggest this, right? Instead of that, it comes at you another way. And I got to be honest with you, I'm someone who was blessed with pretty good health for a long time. I was a professional dancer for decades, then a dance teacher and a choreographer. I had tons of energy. I really never understood the big gap in like healthcare and even just our living environments until mold hit me and it put me in a financial quandary. And I'm shocked to find out that it seems like with mold, if you don't have a lot of money, no one is going to help you. That's what it looks like out there. It looks like only the rich are going to survive this. And that's insane. I'll be honest, I spent a little bit of time, Jefferson, yelling at people on the phone when I was going through this. I could not believe it. I mean, and I let people know I was an independent contractor. I was a dance teacher. I was in the arts, but I mean, I paid my taxes just like everybody else. So, I thought there would be things available to me. And there wasn't. And of course, Obamacare or any type of insurance that you have doesn't cover any of this. And so it made me very upset. It made me angry. And I decided that these people weren't going to rule my life. I was going to find someone to help me. So I just want to share with our listeners that not only are we going to list things for them to go after on their own and suggestions, but I would love to list my particular doctor that I found who has maintained over these years, even as mold illness has become more and more prevalent. Because when he started with me 5 years ago, he had mold patients, but now the amount he has skyrocketed. And he has never changed his rate. I believe his first initial rate for anybody is like it's $200, which is pretty standard. And he Skypes with people all over the world. And he's not asking for us to take these $700 mycotoxin urine labs where other doctors won't even see you unless you agree to do that.
Exactly.
He works with you as a person on your budget, and he tries, he tries to do what he can where you're at. And so I'm grateful. His name is Dr. Jeff Seneschal, Senechal. You can find him on YouTube. He did a lecture on mold a couple of years ago because he started having so many patients come in with issues that other doctors couldn't fix because mold mimics other things like heart disease. And we all know it mimics everything because of the inflammation, but he recognized that people don't know this. So if you go onto YouTube, you can you can search YouTube, Dr. Jeff Seneschal mold. There's a mold lecture. And my case is actually the first case that he talks about, Jefferson. I'd forgotten because this was a few years ago and I just watched it recently. And because I had so many symptoms, as I'm sure you had, and we're still, fine tuning and trying to manage things. But the number one symptom that he went after for me at the very beginning when I called him, because I was like, I have like 27 things going on. Which one do we tackle first? And he was like, well, the first thing we need to do is try to kill the mold in your body, and he started off, I know this sounds silly because I was like, that's it. He started giving me the ADP oregano from Biotics Research, not the oregano that you can see that's in a capsule. I mean, this stuff is designed to get into your gut in the lower part and kill viruses, mold, bacteria. Within 2 weeks of taking that, my adrenal fatigue that I'd had for 1 year straight where I could barely get out of bed and function went away. And then most importantly, when I saw him for the first time, I was having chest pains. Again, a healthy dancer, teacher, choreographer. I was still taking 2 ballet classes a week. That's some hard work, right? Yeah. But then I couldn't do anything. And so I had these chest pains, shooting pains down my left arm, tingling in my fingertips. Of course, I'm thinking, am I having a heart attack? What's going on? So he checked. I did a blood test for clotting factors they look for to see if you are, someone who may get heart attacks. I didn't have any of that. And what it was the type of mold that was in my HVAC, because I was still in that building at the time, was inflaming my heart. So I would get chest pain. So he gave me bromelain plus CLA. That's from Biotoxin research. It's enzymes, natural enzymes to take to combat the mold that was attacking me, right? So we're getting on top of that. My chest pains went away. And obviously I got out of that building, thankfully. I want to tell you though, like Jefferson's saying, listeners, it's not like, and then everything was fine. It's
right.
If I walked into any water damaged building with that in the HVAC, within 30 seconds, I would have chest pains. I would look up and I would see that junk in the HVAC. So that means no more Dollar Trees, like I couldn't go anywhere, only brand new buildings. But anyway, I would take that and I mitigate that. So I'm saying that's something that I have all the time. And while the weather in Dallas lately has been kind of rainy and weird, I take that stuff daily. Who's that?
This is Edward, my other son.
Edward. So, yes. You want to say something, Edward?
Yeah, he's just, I need to text. It's normally right around this time they start watching, it's their iPad day. So, but it's locked for the code and I don't know the code.
Okay, well, I'll keep talking. How's that?
But it's all good. Keep going. But
yeah.
Actually, I do have one thing I wanted to share. There's a lot that we want to do, and, for the website. And that is one of the things is actually getting a list of, for example, good doctors, ones that actually care is something that we're looking for. Because too many, like you say, too many of these doctors are just in it really for the money. They're just looking to rip people up. Dr. Shoemaker was one of the first ones to come along to really try to tackle the mold problem. This is, and you can see he's got a stack of, tens of thousands of people that he's treated. And you're right, the rate of people that he's treated and all of these different doctors I've treated have increased over the years as our climate somehow has changed. Won't even go down that road.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you can recognize the trend, then we should be responsive to that trend. And the trend is we should have more tools in our arsenal to tackle these different problems and more information to be shared, because that's going to be the only way. If there's only one doctor for 100 people, it doesn't make sense for the doctor to just try to treat everybody at $600 a piece. There's just no economic way that'll be sustainable.
Right.
On the other hand, if we can, that's why I want to hire these doctors and to have them as a part of the foundation and to share this information widely so that we can say, hey, here are some protocols that have worked. You don't have to have money necessarily to follow these protocols. If you want specific advice, perhaps we can open up other ways that these people can contact doctors, think like Quora, where they can ask questions and get answers.
Yeah.
These would be the ways that we can tackle this on a much broader scale. That's kind of the vision that I've been having for the foundation, for our listeners, so that we can hopefully combat a little bit more effectively what's coming. And my fear is that we're going to get so many more people injured by this mold that it might not be a sustainable recovery. I think I shared with you, and it was on an earlier show, I talked about it. There was this group of grad students somewhere in the South area, think like Louisiana or Texas or whatever. But it was in one of these different areas where they were studying mold, and they were studying these different things that were going on with frogs and mold. And so you would think, okay, well, frogs is they would have the mold that would come on the frogs during the day, and during the colder climate, the mold would come on and kill off large portions of the frog population. But then in summer, it was too hot for the mold, and it would burn off all the mold, and the frog population would bloom. Now, what they found was over the years, and this was like a 5-year study, the mold is adapting to warmer and warmer climates. The mold is able to stay on the frogs at, say, 90 degrees, 91 degrees, 92 degrees. Now, the only reason why that mold isn't on us, all as humans, is because we're at 98.6. We're too hot for them right now. What were to happen if mold suddenly jumped? And this is just one area that we happen to study. We don't have enough eyes and ears studying the millions of different kinds of molds that's out there right now, evolving, adapting. And you're right, it is intelligent. It is way more intelligent than a bacteria, way more intelligent. A virus is a dumb machine. It's like a wheel. It just goes and goes and goes. Eventually, you plug something in the wheel and it'll stop going. That's a virus. A bacteria has limited intelligence. It'll go around and eat stuff, but just about anything will kill the bacteria. Drive a freight train over it. Hey, there goes the bacteria. That's literally what they do with antibiotics, the freight train. Mold, on the other hand, is, the name escapes me, but it's a gas that they use. It's very commonly available. Definitely don't want to be around it unless you're in a full suit, but you suit up, you spray this gas, it dissipates, chlorine dioxide, that's what it is, chlorine dioxide. All right, so basically it's like a fogger type of thing. You just spray this gas all over the house, it dissipates naturally. It's not harmful to the environment. Chlorine dioxide is actually everywhere, it's just not in that quantity. And so you just put chlorine dioxide all over the house. The mold dies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's definitely something we should list. I don't know, I think the thing about this, what's going to be so good for people coming to your website is that, like we said, everyone has different situations, right? I've been living in an apartment, so I can't just do whatever I want, right? So we have, so like the spray that I use called EC3 spray works perfect for me because I could take it with me to my teaching job when I was still going into studios, which, by the way, I had them clean out the HVAC and they did everything there. But what I'm saying is that, like, they're tools, Jefferson, like you're saying, there are tools. And so, I want to talk more about those. And then also, just to piggyback on what you were saying, yes. So the mold intelligence, this is where something like COVID should be our big wake up call too, right? Because this is what tripped me out. We have been in the last 100 years, we've not had to see a plague, right? Now we have a pandemic / plague. So that's been eye-opening. The fact that there are all these people who study, this is all they study. So they knew this was coming, and we've all just been like, la, 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 right? No one told us to maybe this might be coming. And then the other thing is the symptoms. that everybody had, then the long haulers, the people who may not have even gone to the hospital, but now have dealt with long hauler symptoms for months and months. Every single one of those symptoms are symptoms that I had as a mold patient, and sometimes still go back and forth with. The arrhythmias, the blood pressure issues, and vertigo, and fatigue, and
I
so
mean,
what
the
freaked me
lymph
out,
nodes exploding,
right?
the thyroid's exploding.
Right, and so there's that mold expert. He has a show called The Fungus Among Us, I think, or that's his book. I forgot his.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a podcast with a mold survivor, and they talked about how the fungus, it's a fungus that they believe was in the feces of the bats.
Right.
That create it. So it is a fungus. Now, how that fungus is smart enough to replicate and create that is like what you're talking about, though. It's an intelligence, right? And it's different than anything we've ever seen. How it can replicate and create variants. And what I find interesting is that as this went along, the variants were now getting to the younger people, right? The last batch of variants that came out was attacking the younger people. So I'm like,
right.
It's a trip. It's like a sci-fi movie in a way.
Yeah.
So that big wake up call is for everyone listening, is we need to be self-educated. We need to take care of our bodies. You need to learn about keeping your liver detox pathways open, because no, there isn't any way of avoiding the toxins in the world. And my doctor's great he doesn't try to pretend that you can. He's like, let's keep your liver functioning properly, honey, because you're inundated with toxins in this world, and now you have mold and everything else that it created.
Exactly.
So, and then and women have the estrogens, and by the way, as a woman, I can tell you that my endocrine system and other issues escalated because mold is the xenoestrogen.
Right.
So that doesn't help. And so it's about choosing to be aware and take responsibility in however ways we can. I want to read this to you. This was from that Toxic Mold Summit from Dr. Dennis. Oh, this is what I wanted to say too, is that I was thinking about everything that I've done to get to where I can function still and keep a job. And obviously I'm not teaching any longer, which I had to retire from that. But I realized it wasn't just Dr. Jeff Seneschal. It takes like a village of going to different experts, the people who I needed to talk to air quality experts, and they taught me about when do I open my windows, for how long, and when do I not. So that's something we can talk about too, right? Because there's all kinds of ways you have to manage your living environment. And then there's Dr. Dennis, whose products, I'm not an ENT patient, thankfully. He wouldn't necessarily see me because I'm not one of those people that has sinus infections, chronic, right? But he would refer me to an environmental illness doctor. But his team at Microbalance Health Products, they gave me the most amazing information, and they taught me. They're like, no, your instinct to not bring that moldy box that's been in the back of a UPS truck, that's correct, because that's bringing the stuff in. And I sensed that. And I would be like, maybe I can spray it down. He's like, just open it outside and bring it. Oh, yeah. And he told me that my sofa that I was so attached to, that was gorgeous, that someone gave me, and it was leather, and it looked like I could clean it. I was like, but I cleaned it with your stuff. And he goes, it's porous. I go, but I don't see anything. It doesn't matter. It's invisible, but it goes down and it beds in. And I was like, no, I took it to my new place. And I didn't think anything of it. But later on, I flipped it over, and it was growing mold. Got it out of my home. My health shot up just like that, because it was gone. So I'm saying that because he knows his stuff, and he's had mold patients. You probably know this, but my biggest thing is that I've not been able to leave and get to some fresh, clean air. Now, I was raised by the beach in LA, never got sick really. In Texas, there's really no breeze, right? No fresh ocean breeze. But he says that when his mold patients go to specific areas like beaches, not super humid beaches, obviously, But where there's salt air, you know, that salt cleans out your nasal passageways and that helps. But this is what he said, changed my life for the better. He said the air you breathe is 5 times more important to your health than all treatments rendered by hospitals, doctors, and medication. So these are the studies that are out there, folks.
True.
Then he said the air you breathe is 2 times more important to your health than your genetic code. And that blew me away. And if you think about that, listeners, think about it. Even if, like, I was given some really good genes, I believe. Okay, so I have a gene that doesn't let me get rid of mold, but I wasn't supposed to live with mold. But as far as just no real health issues my whole life, I had good genes. But if you're in an environment with crap air, it will switch things off that you had to protect you and give you stuff that you were never predisposed to.
Exactly.
So think about it again, folks. The air you breathe is 2 times more important to your health than your genetic code. That means you have to take care of the air in your home and your workplaces and your car, right?
Clean
and then
air. That's the number one thing I always
that's
thought
the
up
number one thing, right? And then he said this, which I had not heard. Nearly 60% of all preventable deaths are due to the air conditions at home and work.
That's right.
60%? That's a trip. So again, me as an adult, I go, if these are the numbers and people know this, why aren't we taught this? Like, you know, I mean, this is something that should be fundamental to Americans. We should know how important this is. So unfortunately, it takes people getting sick to find out.
And that's where we're at. I think we've had now at least 30 years of case history to look at. And I think, right now, this is the time for us to take a moment, take a look around, survey the battlefield, as they say, and take a strong position, because that'll be the only way that we can survive it collectively. Collectively, I think we'll be a lot stronger than if we each individually try to battle this mold on our own. And that's our call to everybody. So, all right, well, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, is it Douglas Kaufman that has that show? Is that his name?
Douglas Hoffman, that's him. You got it.
Yeah, okay. So check that out, folks. He's got some really good information out there, too. Yep.
So, but we really appreciate everybody. And thank you for coming on the show, Carrie. We'd love to have you again next week.
Yeah.
And also, anybody else that would like to be on our show, reach out to us. We're always calling for experts. I hope to have on one of these upcoming shows, there's Dr. Leonard Melmauer. He can talk about the Great Liquid Diet. Diet is the other, it's the 3 things: clean air, clean water, clean food. You get that, and that's 90% of the battle right there. Supplements, They just help. That's it. They just help.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, everybody. It's been a great show. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend.